Hey, it's me, C! This chapter of Dandadan was a bit of a come down from the previous chapters, and for good reason. Dandadan is going on break until December 9th, so this chapter was mostly focused on resolving the tensions between Kouki and the Dum-de-Dums. But in that, we were able to finally get some clarity and officially confirm that yes, indeed, Ira can be 100% blamed for Kouki being depressed and then eventually blackmailed. Okay, just kidding. But it's a little complicated, so let's jump into the new chapter, shall we? I recently just became addicted to Pom Pom Punch, a new Gamer Supps raspberry flavor, which usually I'd hate, so pick you up some using my 10% off partner code along with a waifu cup of your choosing. Okie dokie artichoke, this chapter is mostly focused on getting down to the bottom of why Kouki is involved with any of this and how she came to control the Tontada. Turns out, as expected, her true role in all of this was simply to just use the blade given to her to take Momo's power. Now, can I just say about this first page for a second that if Kouki gets back to MCR's #1 fan, I'm okay with that. It was an awesome design, but Kouki with her hair back is so striking. I think it has to do with her gigantic freaking pupils, but she has this, I don't know, this epitome of the puppy dog eyes look. They're just so big and round, and I just kind of want to protect her. But anyways, she begins to tell them that the blade has conditions. They can't just stab the user, and that is that. It requires there to be prerequisites met before the blade can activate its true power. But here is the crazy part. Kouki's head begins to hurt, and then she suddenly cannot remember anything about the conditions. And while Ira continues to persecute Kouki, believing she must still remember, she doesn't. This is thanks to Count Saint Germain's powers of making people forget about him. But I wonder what these conditions actually are. If it is not just as simple as stabbing someone, then I think it may have to do with the whole yield thing. Basically, in wrestling terms, it's like an I quit match. The first person to beat their opponent so hard and force them to yell, "I quit!" into a microphone is deemed the winner of a match. And that's my guess as to how this mechanic works, basically, because it only makes sense based on the other times we've seen Count Saint Germain use this power previously. We can't be sure of this, but this makes me skeptical of the possibility of anyone in the Ganga Gang ever, well, yielding. Unless they are forced to, of course. Which does mean I could foresee in future confrontations Count Saint Germain using, like, I don't know, Turbo Granny as an example, to make the kids yield and forfeit their powers, or maybe Kouki or Ira, or even the most important member of the group, Sakata. We'll just have to see, right? But Momo figures that this was all a part of Count Saint Germain's plan to put in safeguards to stop Kouki from revealing pertinent information. And we learned straight from Kouki that even her power to use the Tontadas is all because of Count Saint Germain. He forced it on her by having the little critters use a bunch of, well, the presumably same knives she was told to use against Momo to transfer the power to her through stabbing her arm. And you see her roll up her sleeve and show off her arm as if she remembers the pain of being stabbed. It was a nice body language detail, but you can tell that Kouki probably didn't enjoy the experience of being stabbed too much. I don't know many who do. But through that, she was then able to see and then control them. I also love the art for these panels because you see the little Tontada all just hanging out. Some of them are even having little fights and playing with each other. It's just small details like this that makes Tatsu one of the best weekly artists in shonen currently. That's my personal opinion. It's not like the other artists don't do it or that Tatsu is the greatest of all time. I just personally really dig how Tatsu tries his hardest to bring life to Dandadan in even the smallest ways, literally. However, as the Tontada jumps on her arm and tries to bandage up her wounds that don't exist, she actually swats them away and rejects them. This surprised me, and the others too, as they were the ones protecting her. But while these little uwu dorks are trying to help Kouki, she is creeped out by them and rejects this power. She feels she does not need them at all, and she begins to break down and cry because her life of normality was taken from her. She made one mistake and all of this happened to her. I found this interesting because this is a character that, as we see, may indeed have a normal life. Trust me, being in a dysfunctional family is sadly more normal and not as odd as it may seem at first. But Kouki seemed to be miserable before the Tontada just as much as she did with these powers and blackmailing. And really, you get the sense that Kouki most likely took these powers in the first place to try and gain some power over her own life. Well, okay, outside of the blackmailing, which is probably the biggest factor, but because when a person is rejected and neglected, they feel powerless. And this allows people to come in and offer them power. I mean, I'm sure you guys have experienced that. We see a lot of that stuff happening today where people are siloed into groups and thus are more likely to be accepted by fringe bubbles. The exact same thing happened to Kouki pretty much. When humans are backed into a corner, the enemy suddenly seems like a warm friend. This is when Queen Sensei, aka Ju, chimes in about how students would often see this little old man and they would come to her to tell her about it. Most students were scared of him and wish they'd never seen him again. So, being a Dandadan character, she decides to do some research on this and found out that the Tontada are based on folklore that they were originally people driven from the surface and made to work and live underground. She describes them as the societally weak, aka the actual good people of society. Tales old as time, am I right? So they disappeared and became uwu critters, and the memories of them were gone too. But their desires to be seen and noticed remain, and thus they rally around and come to people who are just like them. The weak people, who won't be seen by society and noticed for who they are and not for what they aren't. This pretty much perfectly describes Kouki, and while Count Saint Germain forced this power onto her, it seems that despite that, they are a perfect fit for Kouki. And I think she realizes this too, that she completely misinterpreted the meaning of the powers for her. Likely she was under the impression that these powers are meant for evil. After all, she was told to use them to essentially gravely injure Momo. But the power itself is actually one built around care, really. These little ones see someone in need of love and they tend to them any way they can. That's why they tried to patch up Kouki's arm, because they saw that remembering such a feeling was hard for her to go through, and so they did all they could to patch up wounds that don't exist physically but do mentally. That is because the Tontada are just like Kouki, the forgotten fabric of society that looks ugly and not proper, so they do all they can to erase what they think is slop. But here's a cool twist. Turns out there is a student that Ju was talking to that is seeking them out. My immediate thought went to this student being the original person who possessed these powers, but was taken from them, probably by Count Saint Germain, obviously. So my guess is that we probably will see whoever this is eventually, and they will confront Kouki or the group in some form or fashion. Maybe as a warning, maybe to get their powers back, or for some other nefarious or good reason. Though, now saying that, what we do know about the powers description is that they probably actually won't be the enemies of the group, because like Kouki and the Tontada, this person is forgotten and rejected by society. I also do not think this person has been seen yet either, mostly because the theme of being forgotten means we likely just don't know who this person is. Also, WTF, why is the Tower of Babel shown? Why is Dandadan so crazy? I can't even begin to speculate on what that means. As well, let's talk about the old man. This has to be the old man fairy that Momo saw in the library, and it matches the description 1-to-1. So if I were a betting man, and well, I may be, who knows, my guess is that by the next chapter of December 9th, the gang will go to the library and try to find this old man. And since the old man is often rejected by those he sees, he will probably be shy, skeptical, and reluctant at first to meet and talk with them. After all, he was hiding behind a bookcase when we first saw him. And if that is the case, Okarun and Kouki would probably be the perfect people to try and get him to open up to them, and these two, by the way, are the definition of forgotten and rejected, so it does make sense. And it is here that Kouki realizes the critters were simply just trying to help her. When she was at her most forgotten, they remained with her to help her every step of the way. They even stitched together a message telling her to hang in there, which was absolutely hilarious, cute, random, and so Tatsu. So since Kouki can communicate with them, Momo asks if they know how to turn Momo back to, well, Big Momo, but they do not know. And on the flip side, the apparent new leader of the group, by the way, Ira, is quite curious who the owner of the knife is, because it can steal and give abilities to others, and it can be anyone it is effective against. So since Kouki can't remember anything, they decide to remain vigilant and protect Kouki at all costs. Once they come to contact her, that is when they will jump out and drop kick that Baldy and make them erase the photos of Kouki. However, good eye to the people who caught this when the chapter initially came out, but the girl featured recently in the right side of a panel in the Kouki flashback, that was indeed Ira. When learning that Kouki is that Kouki, it all comes full circle. Ira lost to Kouki in a piano competition, and thus gave it her all in practice for a year, because natural talent didn't carry her to first place after all, so she came back the next year while Kouki rested on her laurels and beat her, which then caused Kouki to spiral into depression over time. If you think about it, Ira may be one of the reasons for Kouki's anguish, though let's be real, it's not as cut and dry either. Kouki quit playing because of Ira. Basically, the plot to look back happens here, in which Fujino is Kouki and Kyomoto is Ira. However, it's different, obviously, and Ira tells Kouki that she should be grateful to her parents for paying for her lessons and allowing her to play piano in the first place, all of that. It's a rather honest and balanced view that Ira has of the situation, even going as far as to call Kouki chicken-hearted, which seems kind of harsh, and it may be, but she is right. Yeah, Kouki was in a rough situation where she probably didn't need to be as rejected as she was, and her sister and her mother, so were her class. They went too far, and there is a kernel there. It's like this. At the end of the day, we have much more power than we perceive we have. As individuals, we have the agency to be and do what we want. Maybe what Ira was trying to tell Kouki was that, yeah, your life is not ideal, but you know what? You shouldn't just rest on your natural talent like Ira did when she was defeated. You get to work, you practice religiously every single day to become the best you absolutely can be, even if you practice until you almost die. That is what makes the best version of you, the one that doesn't give up. And Ira brings up a really good point. The people who rely on talent often do not put in enough hard work. And just like that, it seems as if Kouki has some sort of new understanding on her situation thanks to Ira. And as for the rest of them, well, Sakata, he's in bad shape. Until Ju pays attention to him and suddenly he is as fit as a fiddle, I just want to say it should have been me. Overall, another amazingly solid chapter. During the next couple of Mondays until December 9th, while we're on break, I will be releasing my long-awaited Turbo Granny arc and Acrobatic Silky arc video. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, make sure to drop a like, and always remember that you have the individual power to make a difference in your own world and community, no matter if you believe that or not. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.